Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And I got this controversial story for you coming straight out of New York City. Where there is a $65 million transgender shelter that has been built on taxpayer dollars, and many folks are wondering if this is a misguided use of taxpayer dollars. We're talking about a $65 million transgender shelter. And is it discriminatory against other types of homeless people? So let's get into, there's all kinds of controversy that's going on in New York with Eric Adams' mayoral cabinet, and there's a lot of violence, there's immigration issues, there are all kinds of things that are taking place in New York. And then now you have this newly elected controversial mayor, Mandani, that has been elected as the new mayor going into the new year, and they're claiming that he is a socialist. So let's see what's going on with this New York City $65 million transgender shelter. Is this a misuse of taxpayer dollars? New York City is funneling $65 million in taxpayer funds into Aces Place, that's the name of the shelter, a Long Island City Queens shelter exclusively for homeless individuals identifying as transgender or gender non-conforming. Set to run through 2030, this first of its kind facility, born from a 2021 settlement with a trans identifying activist, prioritizes a small demographic while the city's broader homeless population struggles in an underfunded, overstretched shelter system. So there are lots of homeless people in New York City, all over the country. Some of the things that are destroying our country today is the opioid crisis, undiagnosed and untreated mental illness, and of course, homelessness and helplessness. The New York City Department of Social Services and Destination Tomorrow touted Aces Place as a landmark movement for the city's legacy as a sanctuary for LGBTQ individuals, claiming it's a necessary response to a sustained attack on transgender rights nationwide. The 150-bed shelter offers not just housing, but lavish perks, a culinary arts program, and a full-time psychiatric nurse practitioner and other clinical staff providing comprehensive mental health support for issues like depression and anxiety. New York City Department of Social Services Commissioner Molly Wasa Park called it a way to strengthen the safety net for transgender New Yorkers, while Chanel Lopez, Deputy Director of LGBTQ plus Affairs for the New York State Executive Chamber, deemed it historic and life-saving. Sean Ebony Coleman, CEO of Destination Tomorrow, justified the shelter's exclusivity, arguing that transgender or gender non-conforming individuals face unique struggles in traditional shelters, such as being misgendered or lacking identity affirmation. Can you imagine going into an environment and you're asking for help and they're constantly misgendering you and constantly telling you you are not who you say you are, she said. How do you learn in that environment? How do you thrive in that environment? It's almost impossible. But with 105,373 people, so over 100,000 people in New York's city shelter system as of June 2025, over 100,000 homeless folks. Many question why taxpayer dollars are being directed to a boutique facility for a tiny fraction of the homeless population. It's true that the perks are in many ways tied to the nonprofits that help manage specific shelters or donate extra funds. Some general shelters across New York City do receive aid from nonprofits, and ACE's Place is being managed by Destination Tomorrow. However, a 2023 City Council mandate requires one mental health professional per 50 families in shelters. Yet, only 3/4 of family shelters comply. And most single adult shelters, listen to this, most single adult shelters offer no on-site counseling or psychiatric services at all. So your typical standard homeless shelter for individual male or female adult to go in, the traditional shelters do not provide any on-site counseling or psychiatric services. However, in this transgender shelter, there are providing psychiatric on-site counseling and psychiatric services. Meanwhile, ACE's Place boasts of having an entire clinical staff and a culinary arts program, a luxury rarely seen in general shelters, which focus on bare necessities like food, clothing, and beds. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's 2024 report found that a total of 771,480 people were living in emergency shelters, transitional housing, or on the streets last year, almost 800,000 folks. Comparatively, only 2,561 people who identified as transgender experienced homelessness during that same time frame. So you got almost 800,000 in total homeless folks, but you're only talking about 2,500 that identify as transgender. This disparity has raised concerns about fairness. Why should one group receive specialized services while the majority of homeless New Yorkers, many grappling with similar mental health challenges or joblessness, get shortchanged? Critics argue that the city's focus on identity politics over practical solutions misallocates resources in a system already strained by rising homelessness. Homelessness throughout the country has gone through the roof. People, you go anywhere in this country, in the last 7 to 8 years, I've seen more panhandling than I've ever seen before. ACE's Place, with its taxpayer-funded extras, risk fueling resentment among those who see it as preferential treatment for a politically favored group. As New York City pours millions into this trend-setting experiment, many taxpayers are left wondering why not prioritize equitable care for all homeless people. Critics of the shelter have addressed this exact concern. Republican New York City Minority Council leader Joanne Aurelio, for example, told the New York Post that every New Yorker should feel safe in our shelter system. But instead of fixing the system for everyone, the city is spending $63 million to build a separate facility based on gender identity. She stressed that money should have gone to hiring more Department of Homeless Services, police officers, and social workers to make all of our facilities safe. Instead, we are just further segregating the homeless system and ignoring the very real problems in favor of progressive political theater. So the issue is are the people in New York City making a big deal on isolating one group of individuals and building this extravagant homeless center for just a small segment of homeless people that represent the LGBTQ community and being transgender. Some have even questioned the legality of this shelter, arguing that it could be considered discriminatory. While not a New York City official, the prominent conservative social media account Libs of TikTok posted on X, the shelter called ACE's Place is built only for transgender and gender non-conforming individuals because trans rights are under attack. How is this legal? In response, one user commented, spending $65 million on a shelter limited to LGBTQ groups is discrimination funded by taxpayers. Public money should serve every homeless person, not bankroll an activist agenda. So are there politicians pushing this LGBTQ agenda and transgender agenda specifically, and just isolating this out to build this $65 million shelter? What about all the other homeless people when you're talking about 800,000 folks? The debate is far from settled. With ACE's Place having just opened, public discourse is heating up, and conversations about fairness, legality, and priorities are likely to intensify. As New York City embarks on this controversial experiment, critical questions remain unanswered and the path forward is unclear. So I thought this was a very interesting story. They built this nice shelter extravagant shelter for transgender homeless individuals, which is a small segment of the homeless community. But what does that say for the other hundreds of thousands of homeless people in New York that do not fit that particular category? Why isn't there a homeless shelter designated for all homeless people with all these support social services, such as counseling, psychiatric services, medical treatment, things of those nature? But is this being politically driven because we've had this big push with DEI, LGBTQ plus in immigration? So those have been three big agendas here recently: DEI, LGBTQ issues, and the immigration issue. And many people are saying, in those three top categories, are they isolating just LGBTQ homeless folks and then not paying attention to the rest of the homeless individuals throughout our country, and let alone in New York City? I think the homeless situation is not based on gender, race, creed, or color. They're all human beings. We need to uplift our humanity as a society. And if they're going to build a transgender shelter for safety for transgender folks, they should also have a huge shelter for regular homeless people that need help in trying to survive this crazy world that we live in. Tell me what you think about this $65 million transgender shelter that's been built in New York City.